but
Yeah, I was
it's an
gonna say.
option.
We'll go. They gave me this like uber duper super steroid inhaler thing that's supposed to help. So
And it's probably parasympathetic. It's just like a tickle, and you just kind of do it. And maybe just
parasympathetic, antithetic, whatever. I don't know, man.
it's annoying.
I'm like, yeah, it's paranoid.
That's right.
Morning. You could say hello. Norm, staying Keller County. Linda. I wasn't talking. I'm sorry. He said something to me about a meeting of driving or something. We're just going to executive session.
It's a very short presentation. The real question is going to be funding.
We should have done
I think the message is
Doing well. How are you?
Clock ticks down.
yes, and then when he's our regional partner, so thanks for all you're doing for us.
Let's see. Put the phone next to you.
Oh, is there? I'm not. I'm sitting in.
Making my comments.
Yeah, that might help. Thanks for looking at. So you're going to, are you taking that today?
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the meeting. Welcome. Go ahead and come to order. I believe we do have a quorum. We'll go around and make some introductions. Starting off, I want to welcome our new member, Yolanda Avila, Councilwoman from Colorado Springs. Say hello.
Hi, everybody. Nice to be here.
Head on around.
Rick Sonnenberg, Acting Executive Director, PPACG.
Bruce Davis, City Councilman, City of Victor.
Jeff Kaiser, Mayor, Town of Monument.
Jerry Storm, Military Affairs Council.
Lieutenant Colonel Alan Heritage, I'm the Director of Public Affairs at the Air Force Academy, sitting in for Colonel Zahn today.
Doug Shasta, 21st Spaceman Commander, Installation Commander for Peterson and Shannon.
Rod Chisholm, Deputy Garrison Commander, Fort Carson.
Nicole Nicoletta, Mayor, Manitou Springs.
Turner Smith, council member from Town of Rima.
Sharon Thompson, Fountain City Council.
Neil Levy, Mayor, Woodland Park.
Tyler Stevens, Green Mountain Falls.
Stain Teller County Commissioner.
Annie Pico, council member, Colorado Springs.
Mark Waller, and since none of my colleagues from the commissioner are here, I'm a county commissioner from the best commissioner district in El Paso County.
Well, I think another county commissioner is on her way.
It's not here to dispute it now.
And I'm fairly favorably inclined toward that particular district. Okay, we have before you the agenda. I'd like to move on the information items. Representative Terry Carver, welcome, by the way, and bring her up to the public comment. So with the agenda approval?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
So leading off, Representative Terry Carver, welcome to the meeting.
Thank you, Councilmember Pico, and thanks to PPACG. Let me just say that being able to reach back to PPACG and in particular some individual members for their expertise as well as position on issues is just enormously helpful. I just want to make a couple of very brief comments about transportation funding. Obviously, much more to say on that, and I know we have some CDOT representatives here. From my point of view, this last legislative session was a great disappointment. As you may know, SB 267, the only bill that did pass and get signed into law, is very much a partial solution. It is roughly $1.8 billion, which sounds like a lot, but isn't when you look at even our Tier 1 priority list projects, which is valued more around $3 billion to $4 billion. If you're looking at bonding, raising that amount of money and actually building those projects out. So the difficulty with 267 is that you've only got enough money to fund a half to two-thirds, roughly, of the projects on the Tier 1 list. And those of you here are probably familiar with the Tier 1 list. It's the list of projects statewide that has gone through our current statewide vetting process. So PPACG, the 15 transportation planning regions / MPOs have up-channeled their priority projects. It has gone through CDOT over to the Transportation Commission, and they, at the end of that process, come up with what's called a Tier 1 list, which reflects the vetted highest priority projects around the state, and it is a statewide list. And that is anywhere from $3 to $4 billion. So unfortunately, with 267, we now have a process that we're still trying to get some clarity on. What projects will ultimately get funded off the Tier 1 list, and what is the process for deciding that? And unfortunately, it becomes a difficult process where we are advocating for our projects, other areas are advocating for their projects, and as opposed to a statewide solution that would at least address everybody's priority project, which is what a $3 billion to $4 billion transportation funding would have done, and we wouldn't have this very uncomfortable situation we're left with. So CDOT did provide a briefing last Friday at the I-25 PEL steering group on, in very general terms, what their process is. And so I would just encourage PPACG to be deeply involved in that process, following that process, so that we can be as proactive in making the case for the projects that are important to us and the merits of those projects. The other big failure, I think, is that we did not have any kind of funding mechanism that would address increased maintenance dollars for CDOT. So I'll just close by saying I appreciate PPACG's support for the bill I ran, which quite frankly would have done both. would have fully funded Tier 1 and would have provided an increasing amount of funding for CDOT maintenance. Unfortunately, that couldn't gain sufficient support, so we are where we are. Oh, and one final thing. I was talking with CDPHE yesterday about where we are in our state process for, you may recall reading in the newspaper, the Volkswagen emissions. Colorado, as part of the settlement for violating, modifying their cars to not meet emission standards and, lying about it, our part of that settlement is a little over $60 million. We explored during the legislative session on whether we had any authority in the legislature to direct that money. And because they're custodial funds, that was not something that we could address in the budget. However, I have asked CDPHE to make sure that PPACG and our part of the state is fully involved in the discussion on how that money is to be distributed. There are 7 authorized categories under the settlement agreement to include transit buses, and so I will forward that list to you, but that is currently being looked at within CDPHE, their air division, and we want to make sure that we're seeing an equitable distribution of that money around the state. And so we need to play in that. At least I would encourage PPACG to play in that. Thank you. Any questions?
I'll make one comment on the VW settlement. At the STAC, we've had, I'll describe it as some entertaining discussions, and we've made our position fairly clear on some of the proposals, to not basically send any our way because we're in compliance, and we sort of push back on that quite a bit. But it remains to be seen how that works out.
Well, I was a little dismayed when I heard the role of the RAC, and it seemed like the partner to CDPHE in working this process was Denver Metro specific, which is, that's fine for them to be involved, but this is a settlement to the state of Colorado, not to Denver Metro. And so the rest of the state needs to have involvement in how this money is distributed. So I have asked for additional detailed description of their process, their timeline, who has been invited to participate. I have asked for their notices because I want to see who's been invited to participate. And I have said I really hope your invitation list has included entities around the state. But please forward me what the notices that have been sent out thus far. So the gentleman in question indicated that he hoped to get that to me in a couple of days, but he needed to have some conversations with his leadership. So stay tuned.
Okay. Commissioner
Thank you.
Waller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative, could you explain to us how that $1.9 billion is being developed through Senate Bill 267, and also maybe how that compares to the rest of the state general fund, and finally, maybe how that 267 money is different than money that would have been developed through House Bill 1242 that didn't pass?
Yeah, or 1171, or yes, we had various proposals that, quite frankly, would have done a better job. I will forward for distribution. I had requested a copy of the PowerPoint that the CDOT briefer gave at the PEL steering group. So I will forward that to you, Jessica, if you want to distribute out. And CDOT folks, correct me, raise your hand if I misstate anything. My understanding is that CDOT will be discussing with the Transportation Commission this month what, and I think the word that was used was criteria, but really what the approach should be, what the criteria should be in determining what projects get funded of the Tier 1 list and which ones don't. Now, I will confess, I think the language of 267 is ambiguous as to the decision-making role of the Commission versus CDOT. People read that language differently. So obviously our default is the Commission is supposed to make the decisions on what projects get funded. I think there's language in 267 which kind of muddies that area up a little bit. So that'll be an area that we need to get clarified. Some of the part of the CDOT briefing was because the money is pretty limited compared to the Tier 1 list, is, and this wasn't an official statement, and he made that absolutely clear. He said, you know, one factor might be the extent to which the local communities are in a position or are willing to come up with some part of funding a project. And CDOT, if you think that's not a fair reflection of what was said, please correct me. But again, it was CDOT speaking for themselves, you know, not saying that was official. But obviously, if you can only fund a half to 2/3 of the list, how do you make that decision, and how do you stretch those dollars as far as you possibly can? So Jennifer Irvine was there for El Paso County, and that might be a good follow-up discussion with Jennifer. And as I know this group knows, we have an I-25 coalition group meeting with our folks north, our friends north, Monument and Lone Tree and Larkspur, I believe on June 29th. And so I think that's probably an area that we need to really explore, and how do we best position our project vis-a-vis this process. And obviously the other challenge is that this project actually falls within DRCOG and their planning region. And the point was made last Friday that currently this project is not on DRCOG's financially constrained list. And that which impacts to a certain extent the process of, and CDOT would have to clarify this, and Norm, you may have a better sense of this, but the point was made that to add it to DRCOG's financially constrained list, another project would have to come off DRCOG's constrained list. So you can see the difficulty in that. And so how that plays into how this project would end up going through this 267 process, does that become an obstacle to funding or not? Another area that we need to get clarification on. So lots of questions that we still need to get some answers to, unfortunately.
A lot of stay tuned in that.
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Just a few words on the VW item.
Mm-hmm.
I think the most equitable way to deal with the money due back is when they went to, thank you, when they were going to
give the money back to the counties by the number of vehicles registered per county.
You would think.
And when they vary from that, I think it's unfair. The reason that they gave was that some had already attained air quality, and I reminded them that there was a point in time back in the 70s when Denver was called Brown Town and Colorado Springs was called Little Brown Town.
Mm-hmm.
And this community worked hard to improve its air quality, spent a tremendous amount of money in a variety of ways.
We had our time in non-attainment.
Oh, yes.
And we worked hard to get to attainment.
And-
Absolutely.
And but while you were doing that, you weren't investing money in other things.
Mm-hmm.
So now you need that money to invest in those things. So why don't we get that money now?
Well, and that's why we need to find out what the process is and who's been invited to be part of this process. Again, I was a little concerned that from the conversation that I had with CDPHE that it appeared that the mitigation plan that's currently being worked on, that the primary participants are Denver Metro. Now, obviously, they need to be involved, but they shouldn't be the only ones involved.
Absolutely not.
So we shall see who has been invited to the table, and if we may have to invite ourselves to the table.
Well, I thank you that you're going to be there.
Yeah. So, thank you.
Thanks, Representative. Moving on with public comments, are there any other comments from anyone in the gallery? Seeing none, we have before us consent items. Ready for a motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to the action items. Action 5A, the state FY 2018 state funding allocation.
Good morning. Joe Urban with the Area Agency on Aging. We come before you today to ask for approval of the budget for state fiscal year 17-18. It's been a very confusing year, and as is evidenced by the paper that you have in front of you, we had significant delays this year with the allocation of the fourth quarter federal funds. And therefore, we did not know exactly what kind of money, we still do not know exactly what kind of money we're going to have for state fiscal year 17-18. So what we're asking approval of is the allocation spreadsheet that's in your packet. Basically, that budget was developed on two components. It was developed on the state funding, which we know, and it was estimated based on flat funding from the feds for next year. And we've been advised that's probably the best way to do it. That funding just came into the state as of, I believe, last Friday. They have not analyzed it or allocated it. They expect to have those numbers out to us sometime in August. If they are substantially different than what we have anticipated in this budget, we will come back to the board and ask for, the TRS will actually make an additional recommendation, and we will come back to the board for approval of that. Councilwoman Thompson mentioned that there's a significant difference between the $2.4 million that's on the memo and the $4 million plus that's on the budget. That's the difference between the estimation of the federal funds, and we do not want to put the federal funds on the memo because we don't know what they are yet. Questions?
So maybe it would help just to kind of talk about the process of TRS and determining the numbers.
And
Good point.
Would be remiss if I did not thank the TRS. We had some newcomers this year. We threw them into the fire immediately on a very tough year. The process is that we have what's called a technical review subcommittee. It's a subcommittee of the Regional Advisory Council. They meet roughly 4 times to review RFPs that are submitted by our providers and the budget, internal budget of PPACG AAA as well. After reviewing that, they make those awards. We had some unique circumstances this year in that last year we received about $174,000 in additional funding from the state. It was a residual from the homestead exemption. It was budgeted as homestead exemption money, but it was not claimed. And by statute, that goes to the older Coloradans fund. We do not have that this year. That went away, and we don't anticipate actually ever having that again, quite frankly. So in essence, it's, to a certain extent, it was a $174,000 reduction. The state also reserved about $40,000 for a match with HICPUF for a funding program. So we were down roughly $225,000 from what we would have had last year. TRS reviews the allocations from last year, all of the RFP requests, and then reallocates or allocates money recommendations based on what they feel are the best RFPs. We did not fund any new programs this year because we had significantly less money than last year, which is a challenge for us. We hope to not do that in the future. That kind of stifles growth. But they did fund most programs at pre-homestead levels, if you will. Once that recommendation is made, it goes to the Regional Advisory Council. They unanimously recommended forwarding to the PPACG board.
Okay, any questions? Seeing none, ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve it as is.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any comments from the public? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I think the ayes have it. Thanks, Joe. Fee schedule policy for Colorado Opens Record Act.
Good morning. I'm Jessica with PPACG, your Policy and Communications Manager. The Colorado Open Records Act requires that all public records shall be available for inspection at any time. All of our local governments charge a nominal fee for CORA requests to cover the printing and staff time for extensive requests. We, as PPACG, do not currently have any policy in place for that. So we did some research on what all of our member governments do, what the state does, so that we could compare it with a wide range of options. The item was taken to the PPACG Community Advisory Committee, which actually had a very long and slightly controversial discussion about it. Some of the CAC members felt that 25 cents a page was too much to charge, that it would be punitive and reduce the likelihood of people being able to access information. And one of the parts of that conversation that we ended up having afterwards was that most requests are actually made for electronic records. Very rarely are we receiving requests for paper records, so I wasn't sure how much that impacted. We wanted to make sure that we're not limiting citizen requests versus limiting frivolous requests or phishing. And CAC ended up moving to support the recommended motion with 3 people objecting. When we did all of our research, here's the CORA fee review for all of our member governments. El Paso County gives 10 free pages, 1 free hour, and then 25 cents per additional page and $30 per additional hour. Colorado Springs does 25 free pages, 2 free hours, 25 cents per additional page, and $20 per additional hour. Woodland Park does 0 free pages, unlimited free time, 25 cents per additional page, and $0 per additional hour. So as you can tell, we kind of looked at what everybody did and tried to find a good compromise. We are suggesting 20 free pages, 1 free hour, 25 cents per additional 8.5 by 11 page, and $30 per additional hour with a deposit if the estimate is over $10. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions, Mayor?
So I think it was either in this, which I can't find right this second, or at some point talking about would this cost deter low-income folks from making a Cora request? So I wondered is there any way, and maybe it's just too cumbersome, to have like a sliding scale or a fee for low-income folks who still want to do this, maybe get rid of the deposit for them, or I don't know, is it an option, since it came up as a concern?
I don't know if that would work well, just because it would create such an additional level of bureaucracy. But I will say that at this point, in the 7 months I've been here, I have yet to receive a request for printed records. Everybody wants them electronically. So at this point, I would not have had to use this policy other than possibly for time. So I feel like most citizen requests are not going to fall within anything that will get them charged. They're just not likely to request the type of records that we either don't already have available, already have on the website, or already have.
That was a point I was going to ask you. How much or how many times, essentially do we have Cora requests that even cost a lot of staff time?
It's remarkably subjective depending on what's going on in the agency. December, January, we handled quite a few that were probably very time consumptive for all the different members of staff, but because we didn't have a policy, we weren't tracking it. Typically, we handle probably 1 or 2 a month that can be resolved in less than 2 hours.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Ready? Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Comments from the public? This is a charge to the public, so your last chance. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, moving on to the reports. We are rocketing through the agenda here.
We can slow it down if you want.
No, that's quite all right. We'll go to the military installations report.
Good morning again, Rod Chisholm. Nothing really significantly changing at Fort Carson from last month. Our troop organizations are staying stable. Our rhythm for deployments and redeployments has not changed. We still have a brigade deployed, and we'll be switching that out over the summer months. A lot of changes of commands of different commanders at different levels, and as soon as we have details on actually Major General Gonzalez change of command and when that would be, I'll put that out. Other than that, that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Colonel?
Thanks for allowing us to be here. First off, thanks to Councilmember Pico and Commissioner Littleton and others that came to our 25th anniversary dinner. I think that was, and the ceremony earlier in the day, and then the dinner that evening. As you know, it's 25th anniversary of the 21st Space Wing and 75th anniversary of Peterson Air Force Base. So really appreciate that. Continuing through the year, we'll have the 70th anniversary of the Air Force in September and the 35th anniversary of Air Force Space Command. Just a reminder, we will have the Thunderbirds here in September. It's essentially a Colorado Springs Airport air show, but we're working with them to do that. And so more on that in September, the first weekend in September after Labor Day. A couple things. Thanks to everyone that helped us with the Mark Scheffel widening project. That's now open, and it's really increased our ability to use our East Gate, and appreciate that. On our water issue with polyfluorinated carbonates, we expected the Air Force Civil Engineer Center report to come out at the end of this month. It appears that it'll be maybe a couple more weeks, so into mid-July. As I talked to both the City Council and the County Commissioners, once we have that, we will come and do an event just like we did with Mr. Corral. I'm not sure that Mr. Corral will come out. But we'll do an event to be able to provide that information to everyone. I just want to remind that will only give us what is on Peterson Air Force Base, not and the Colorado Springs Airport, not anything off the base. That's up to the state to do if there's any of that. But we'll be able to provide that information once we have it. We're now expecting it mid-July. So that's all I have on that issue right now. We're continuing to do the filters and water to individuals that are impacted by that. Just out to the public and to everyone here, just a reminder, we do have a museum on Peterson Air Force Base. It's a little bit difficult with the current security to get to, but if you come to the visitor center during the hours, and we can get you onto the base. One of the interesting, or I guess actually sad parts, is a lot of our tour guides are volunteers that are either World War II veterans or in between Vietnam, World War, and they are unfortunately dying off. And so we are in drastic need of more folks that want to be volunteer tour guides at our museum. So if anyone is interested in that, let me know, and we can get to the right the person to do that. And then lastly, I just want to say thanks. This will be my last PPACG meeting. Change of command is on the 11th of July. Colonel Todd Moore will be coming from an overseas assignment to take command, and I'll be headed off to the Pentagon. This is a great community. This is my third time stationed in Colorado Springs. I hope to have more after this back in Colorado Springs, but really appreciate the incredible relationship we have with the community, and thanks for all the help for Peterson and Cheyenne Mountain. That's all I have.
Good morning. Again, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Allen here, just sitting in for Colonel Dunn. As the two gentlemen previously alluded to, it is change of command season, so you get me today, so I apologize in advance. But like I said, lots of changes of command. We had the Commandant of Cadets just changed out last month. Brigadier General Kristen Goodwin arrived, and she is in the seat now. Next week, on the 20th of June, Colonel Dunn will change out. He's heading to the Pentagon, too. And then later in August is when we expect General Michelle Johnson to change out with Major General, right now Major General will be promoted to 3-star as well, Major General Jay Silveria, coming from overseas. So lots of change going on in the leadership department. Just hosted a graduation, and a very successful graduation. My first day in the job last year was when we crashed a Thunderbird. So as the public affairs guy, I was happy to see this one. Yeah, you're welcome, sir. I was happy to see this one go a lot smoother. It hosted 25,000 families and friends, and just want to say thanks to everyone for your communities and welcoming them with open arms, as you always do. A few things just for those who come through the gate. You may see some gate construction going on. We're trying to improve the conditions for our defenders as well as security for the base. We have the odd place of having to remain open for tourism as well as being secure for our cadets. So we are working on that. That construction will go through the end of the year, so pardon our dust. Chapel renovation. Many of you probably have heard the focal point, the visual focal point of the academy is going to be going under a renovation. It's really needed one since the beginning. There were some cost-cutting measures that were done back in the 50s and 60s, and we've been feeling that. It's been leaking since. So around 2018, that date is in flux, but we think 2018 for 2 to 4 years we will pull everything out of the academy, out of the chapel, and go through a major renovation. So that's a big, we know that's a big tourist attraction, and we want to get it done fast, but we also want to get it done right. Football, first game against VMI on the 2nd of September. So we're excited to get that started. As you saw, hopefully you saw, we were recently at the White House picking up the Commander-in-Chief's trophy for beating both Army and Navy. So that was exciting. Hopefully we'll get to do that again. But that was quite an experience going to the White House. And then later on next year, we will be hosting the Wounded Warrior Games at the Air Force Academy, June of 2018. It's an honor. It is just a privilege to be able to help these heroes on their road to recovery. So we're looking forward to that, and more to come on that. And then finally, if you happen to watch America's Got Talent, Air Force Academy cadets were on last night and are on to the second round. So if you get a chance, I don't really watch it unless. Okay, so I'm not going to tell you what happened, but you should watch it. So, but they're really good. So that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Yes, sir.
I can't believe I forgot this, but today is the Army's 242nd birthday.
Wow.
That's right. Yeah, we did comment on that during our agenda prep. We were thinking of having a birthday cake for you, but yes.
Sharon Thompson, City of Fountain. Peterson. obviously, we had some information come out this week, and we have a lot of frustrated citizens and concerned citizens, and some interesting news coverage. Where our phones are ringing off the wall, we're getting hit up when we go to the grocery store, just a lot of concern. Any reach out you could do to the council members in Fountain would be very, very much appreciated. I don't think we as council members have met with anybody in about a year now. So I think it's kind of time that we do that. I know you've been meeting with our utilities directors, but we're the ones that are having to answer to the citizens.
Right. So, and again, as we said earlier, we plan on coming back to everyone and doing a big meeting. We'll do that. We really don't have any other information. So what you're talking about, the article is one, the granulated activated carbon filters, and the School of Mines report that maybe that's not the best way to do it. The reason being in the School of Mines report is that those filters have to be changed, and having signed, I think it was 75 different letters on behalf of the federal government, it says in there that residents have to do that on their own to keep those up once we do that. So again, the EPA is probably the right person to talk about filters. Obviously, I'm not an expert in that, but we will continue to provide
Well, the
updates
frustration
on
to the citizens is not towards the EPA. The frustration to the citizens obviously is towards Peterson.
Right.
So, yeah.
I just don't have any more information than the School
I
of Mines.
understand.
And
Yeah. Okay.
so, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments? I'll add one comment on the museum. It's a great museum over there, and but I felt an awful lot of it was uncomfortably familiar as I wandered through some of that.
And it's in a museum.
And it's in a museum. And they won't let me play with it anymore.
What's sad is that
Yeah. What's kind of sad is that some of the equipment in there was stuff that replaced what I used, and it's now in the museum.
well, sir, it's sad because some of the equipment I used is in the museum as well. So that
Of course, my kids tell me I belong in a museum, but that's all right. We're not kidding. Better. Executive Director's Report.
Good morning again. I'll let my memo stand, and I just have two additional items that are not in the memo in the packet. One is from year to year, occasionally your July board meeting has been canceled, but I just wanted to state that we would like to have the July board meeting is July 12, and I wanted to get a preliminary head count, if I could, to make sure we had a quorum for the July 12 board meeting. Looks good. Thank you.
I think we have a quorum.
Yes. My second item is the Council of Neighbors, is it Neighbors or Neighborhoods? Neighbors and Organizations, CONO, has offered to host a mixer with the PPACG board for two purposes. One is to help celebrate the PPACG's 50th anniversary, which is this year. And the other is so that folks with CONO and their representatives and citizens can learn about PPACG and possibly generate a pool of volunteers that might be on standby to volunteer for our various PPACG committees. If this is of interest to the board, CONO has preliminarily offered 3 dates, and with a 5:30 to 7 p.m. time, June 27, June 29, and July 6.
What days do you want to follow?
5:30 to 7 p.m.
What did it say the dates again?
June 27, which is a
Tuesday.
29th, which is a Thursday, and July 6th, which is a Thursday. They like Tuesdays and Thursdays.
You can do the Thursdays. Thursdays work.
Thursdays, not Tuesdays. I'm seeing kind of a consensus on Thursday around there, and I would say the same thing. Because, the 27th is the Colorado Springs City Council Day, too, and that always tended to be a little...
Okay.
I think the 27th is highly likely to go in the evening. But, so I'm kind of seeing that Thursday load up.
I think the 6th is more, well, it's a holiday week now.
It's a holiday week, yeah, it's a holiday weekend,
But I was thinking it gives people more time to plan.
yeah.
You get a representative there from their community, but it is a holiday week.
It is a holiday weekend, and I can just about guarantee you that I won't be there. So,
Should we ask them to look further out? Yes?
I'm seeing a lot of head nods on that.
Okay. We will ask them for some later dates and send those options out to the board.
I would propose the 20th of July. Well, that's council meeting night for you? Okay.
We can find somebody.
Or the 27th then? I mean, I just was throwing that one out. You're out of town? Well, let's plan it that night for sure.
We'll ask them for some dates.
I'll ask for some dates, yeah.
Okay.
Push back out.
Thursdays, I think everybody's kind of agrees. What council night, you're what, second and fourth Thursdays? First and third?
First and third.
Okay.
So avoid that one.
Okay.
So second and fourth Thursdays.
So noted. Okay. Thank you, and that's all I have.
Any other questions? Okay, Mobility Coordinating Committee, MCC. Joe?
Joe Urban again. Gail Nels, Spencer, apologies. She's in Detroit learning more about assisted transit. The memo is included in your packet. She really didn't have too much to add other than I would bring note to everybody, I think, knows that Senate Bill 11 passed this year, which establishes in El Paso and Teller County a pilot study for access, disability access, basically, to transportation services, in particular how to use technology to access those apps and other methodologies. They are seeking community participation in that, so if you're interested in that, Courtney Stone at the Independence Center would be the person to contact, and they would love to have everybody's participation. Questions? Thanks.
Thank you.
Good morning, Victoria Chavez for PAC. I'm here for Brian, who was unable to be here today. You've seen most of the items already on the report, so I'll just highlight two things that you'll be seeing in the future. You'll be looking at our new objectives that will be coming through for the long-range transportation plan. PPACG staff is taking a novel and a new approach to that. We're very happy with the approach they're going to be taking, so keep your eyes out on that. The other thing you'll be seeing coming up is the TIP policy, and we've had a committee working with CAC and with TAC members to figure out some ways to make that process a little more flexible and easy for us. We want to get those projects out. Questions?
Questions? Thank you. Moving on to the CAC. Mr. Moore.
Good morning, Jim Moore, Community Advisory Committee. Just a couple things that I wanted to spotlight on our report. First of all, we bid farewell to a couple folks who have done yeoman service for us. We said thank you to Bob Baker, who served 2 terms with us. And should be familiar with this group because for a couple of years he was our chairman. We're going to miss him. And then Vince Rusnak, who has been a catalyst for our discussion that we've talked to you about in terms of our roles and mission. As part of our new approach, we are doing some things with bringing people in to help educate us. And Rocky Scott was our first victim.
Victim.
He came in last month and did, I think, a wonderful job of helping get us up to speed. I thought Representative Carver really echoed several of the things that he shared with us, so that was very good. Finally, just a couple of, just expand a little bit on the report that Jessica gave about our conversation on the fee schedule. The issue that was raised of significance was trying to understand costs as opposed to what we were charging for the fees. And it's very interesting because I'm not sure that figure is something that can be easily calculated. The contract for reproduction says that the cost for a black and white copy is less than a penny a page. Cost for a color copy of something is $4, and the whole discussion may be somewhat irrelevant because, as Jessica pointed out, there just aren't that many requests to PPACG. What does come in tends to be media related. One of the things that we've asked of Jessica and her staff is that we try to track this. Let's understand what this issue really is, whether we're just going through something that is part of a kind of bureaucratic work, big work project. So that was the way our discussion went, and that's kind of what we try to bring to the table, representing the community. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have about our report.
I do have one, but looking around, any questions? On the CAC nominating interview panel for the at-large vacancy, we talked about sharing with the City of Colorado Springs. Now, City of Colorado Springs is doing some interviews, but I was intrigued by the comment here that you wanted to share because you don't have any applications. Did I misunderstand?
There are two different questions here.
Right.
First of all, the at-large is within the committee itself, and that is at work. I have not had an update yet on how many. I know we've had one application for that. The issue, I signed out a letter to the president of the council, and I believe copied you and a couple of other members that speaks to the fact that we technically have not really had an official representative from the city since November. I think I've got that right. Am I getting my head nodded around? Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's right, too. Yeah.
And so we would like to encourage the city to rename the person who has been sitting on the committee. And also, I think we have an alternate, or we have a second position for the city that we would like to have filled.
We actually have a number of applications in, and we have scheduled some interviews, so that will be happening probably by the next time we meet. So I think, but I'm not sure if you needed to share whomever we don't select as a at-large. That's what I was kind of.
That thought was raised, depending upon what happens in terms of our applications for the at-large position. So when we were having that conversation, that's exactly what was sort of put on the table. If there are applicants for the city position that are not named, should we take a look at those? And so that process was under consideration, but there was no vote on that.
We'll be prepared to share. Thank you. Yes.
Jim, a few months ago, we talked about review of the mission and scope of CFC. I know it's not your minutes, but how's that going? How's your reevaluation of how you've been contributing, changing? Thank you for asking. I'm confident. We actually ran into a couple of speed bumps in terms of expectations, the recruiting, and what we do. There were discussions that talked about really kind of an expanded thing where we go out and do projects and bring the results back. And the consensus, I believe, around the table was we make a commitment to a certain amount of time volunteering with the committee. And we felt that for the time being, we would try to work within the constraints of time and commitment at this stage, and not get too aggressive in what we were going to do. However, we have done some things in terms of meeting agenda. As I mentioned, Rocky Scott was one of our first people to come and speak to us. Jan Martin is on our agenda for July, and so we're for June. Gosh, it's still June, isn't it? And so we're still working those kinds of issues and trying to stay focused, and in turn also trying to encourage members of the committee, as they get the agenda in the packet, that they try to resolve specific technical issues they may have before the meeting, so we don't get bogged down in what is really kind of a tack issue or more of a technical kind of thing. So those are the initiatives that we've taken at this stage. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you.
Regional Advisory Council, Rick.
Good morning, I'm Dave Betzler. You have our report before you. I'd like to call your attention to one item on there. It talks about the new dispatch health, which is a new provider coming out of Denver. It's in Huntsville. very innovative, and they started up in Denver last year. So they gave us a presentation on that. And essentially, they're providing medical services at home on a rapid basis. So it's kind of the bridge between the emergency room, urgent care, and hospitalization and the rest of it. Interesting, I had another meeting with a Bethesda senior living facility up in the Monument area and mentioned this dispatch health, and they said that's exactly what they're going to be counting on to help assist them so they can keep the senior residents in the facility in their room rather than the disruption of moving them to the hospital, back to rehab, and then back to the facility. So it's an important new provider that's moving into the Colorado Springs area. The other thing I'd like to mention too, just piggybacking on the technical review subcommittee, typically that we're having, we have 4 members on that now. We had 3 meetings this go around here and getting to the recommendations that you approved. And each meeting is around 2 to 3 hours. So it's a significant amount of volunteer time on the part of the technical review subcommittee members. And as you know, the RAC is all volunteer, and it's just one of those things that from the 3 counties, Teller, Park, and El Paso County, it really does make a difference. We're having our meeting this month up in Park at Fairplay, just to try to make sure that we get the members to understand a little bit more firsthand appreciation for what the services are, what the needs are, what the capabilities are in those areas. So that's all I have. Are there questions, comments?
Questions, comments?
Just from reading your memo, it looks like you're doing a lot of good.
Well, thank you. We work very closely with the AAA staff, obviously, and I think that one of the things that, from a council perspective, we're trying to come up with a goal. I'll just touch base on it here. We have a meeting on this month. And essentially what we're saying, or trying to focus on, is the getting the information out. It's an awareness thing, both in what are the needs out there in the various communities, and then what are the services there. And so the hand in glove of that is, okay, and the AAA is the critical agency that we're supporting in this thing. So you'll probably hear more about that, but I think that from a senior citizen perspective, I think there's an increasing awareness that the demographics are changing, and that the growth and the aging of us kids is really going to make a difference on the services and on the community. So, thank you. Yes.
I can speak to that personally. That's why I'm late this morning. I was getting medication for parents who are in assisted living that they didn't let me know till 4:30 last night that they didn't have any for today. So, I mean, it is really critical in finding things out like who bubble packs things and who doesn't, and who can do delivery services and who can't. And it is a minefield to navigate, and even for those of us that are well informed and know how to access resources, I can only imagine how difficult it is. So thank you for all your assistance and everything you're doing, Dave.
Okay, moving on to the stack.
Good morning again. Norm Steen, Teller County, your STAC representative. Just a couple brief comments about our last STAC meeting. Discussion focused on the criteria process for moving projects into the Tier 1, or off of the Tier 1 larger list onto the Tier 1 funded list under SB 267. A lot of gray area out there. We thought we had this process nailed on pretty firmly with development of that list. Statewide, 15 TPRs all commenting on the process. But now with significantly less, the discussion is whether or not we just move the red line up so that fewer projects are funded, or reevaluate all criteria altogether, throw it all into a mix and establish new criteria because the dollars are significantly less. We tend to be, I think, tending towards the latter. At least that's what CDOT staff was recommending, is that the criteria would be basically reviewed once again. The final approval, of course, is the Transportation Commission. Rocky Scott is our representative for this region on that. So it's still not really clear. My guess is that CDOT's going to have a recommended list based on the staff analysis. They are repricing all the projects because the components are somewhat different, whether we move from engineering only to an engineering completion. Most feel that we should be moving towards projects that are completed projects, actual moving dirt and getting things done rather than simply move things into the ready stage. So a lot of work yet to be done. I am pleased to report that they are, I feel that they're pretty engaging to the stack. We're calling for discussions outside of our regular 3-hour stack meeting monthly for perhaps getting our staff involved, Ken Prather, our executive directors around the state, involved in that process, not simply presenting a list and a very packed agenda and asking for approval on something in a 20-minute agenda item. We want to get deeper than that, and we want to make sure that we're engaged not only the pavement but also economic impacts. We've had some really good discussion about what highways are for. Oddly enough, that some highways have a bigger impact than others. Not simply road condition, but what's the road is used for, beyond traffic to what the benefit is to the state. We are working towards a statewide solution. Some discussion about economic distribution of projects so that every region gets a project. There's some merit to that, but I think that some of the larger projects, and they aren't all in Denver, believe me, they're not all in Denver. We have many here, right here, not least of which is the widening of I-25 between Castle Rock and Amendment and Castle Rock, rather. But if you have some thoughts on that, again, I encourage you to meet with any of your 3-4 stack. I saw Sally walk in, representatives to stack. Andy, myself, and Turner. That's kind of an update on stack. We also, coming out part of the stack meeting, we also did a statewide planning, scenario planning exercise. That was not part of the stack meeting, but kind of a follow-on as to what 2045 should look like in the state of Colorado for roads. A big discussion you think would be, what pavement do we need? But we went deeper than that. What is the effect of an autonomous vehicle on traffic flow? Will it increase or decrease? Discussions went both ways on that. Some people think that by adding autonomous vehicles, you now have 10-year-olds taking a car to the football game because mom doesn't need to drive anymore. They may add vehicles to the road, or 90-year-old seniors who no longer are allowed to drive now can take an autonomous vehicle, may add traffic. Or will it decrease and there'll be a ride sharing? One vehicle will be shared by 3 families, for example, which would limit use of parking space and all sorts of good things. So it's a fascinating discussion and that process. And we, as we did mention, we had our own scenario planning right here at Pikes Peak. I thought it was a great exercise. The use of pizza to establish basic funding models and the toppings that went on that pizza was kind of an innovative way to look at it. So I thought it was kind of fun and hopefully useful. No. So any questions on stack?
Norm. Norm.
Yes.
Sharon
ma'am.
Thompson, Fountain City Council. Just when we're talking about I-25 widening, we need to really think El Paso County I-25 widening. I understand that Castle Rock and everything is the big push right now, and that's really important. But, just this morning trying to get up here, of course, there's an accident, and the whole thing just shuts down,
Sure.
So it just needs to be widened all the way to the Pueblo border, and then let Pueblo worry about the rest of it. But we need to think I-25 El Paso County, not just
That's a separate project list. I mean, we are talking about widening, yes. But this particular project is only 2 miles inside our MPO.
I understand that, but I'm just saying we need to really be keeping that further agenda on every meeting that we can.
Yeah. I did ask a question whether or not any of the SB 267 funds decision has been made whether 267 funds will be allocated towards the I-25 project. It is probably the top 5 projects in the state, if not even higher, maybe it's top 2 or 3. No decisions have been made, even on funding the widening of I-25, despite the fact it's got congressional attention and U.S. DOT attention. So no decisions have been made yet, but I think we all get that. Yeah, Nicole? Mayor?
So you mentioned that you guys are using your voices very well about the $60 million for the VW stuff. So I just wondered if, and with what Representative Carver said, do you need more support from the PPACG board? The stack is doing a ton of work. I mean, I love that you're talking about what the highways are used for. Everything you said, diving deeper, I think is extremely important. I'm just wondering if you need more from us as a board to be louder, I guess.
I don't think so. Not yet. The one thing that Representative Carr did not mention is that these rules are set at the federal level. So she mentioned the 9 projects. There are only 9 purposes for which, or 9 or 11, I forget, for which that money can be used. It will not simply be a grant to go into general fund. It is money for specific projects which would lower emissions. So even if it were granted to Woodland Park, there would be a share there. The number of VWs registered in Teller County, for example, would not be a grant to our general fund to use as we wish. It has a very specific purpose, and finding communities who can use it for that narrow range of purposes is difficult. So even though you maybe have vehicles in your county, you may not be authorized the money because you don't have a purpose for which you can use it. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Chair, if I don't mind, I'll move right on to the next item. I think it's also mine.
To Mike?
Okay. Executive Director Search, 7H. Your committee is working. We had a three-week break while we sought responses from search firms. If you remember, the last time we met, this group authorized a widening of the search beyond the applicants that we had based on just putting an announcement out there that we actually want to go after more talent, be willing to spend a little more money to pay for the right person to take the executive position here. We sent out requests for bids to 17 different search firms nationwide, from East Coast to West Coast, in the state of Colorado and outside. We had seven responses, only one of those from Colorado. If you also remember last meeting here, this board authorized the search committee to spend up to $60,000 for that search firm. I'm happy to report that of the 7, the range of prices ranged from $17,130 to a high of 25% of the total salary, which at its maximum would be $49,600. So still well below the $60,000 that this board authorized as a maximum cap on expenditures. Just want you to know that the board will fully consider price as a factor. It is a factor. It's not the most important factor because we want to make sure we get the right candidate, even if it costs a little bit more. So the next meeting of that Executive Search Committee is Friday, day after tomorrow at 3 p.m. here in this room. Oh, no, actually, we're meeting upstairs. Well, I think we have technology now to record upstairs. So you're welcome to join us 3 p.m. Friday, day after tomorrow, June 16th. Any questions? Sure.
Okay. Okay, our CDOT monthly update. Mark?
Good morning. Andrew with CDOT. Just a quick, brief update on construction projects. US 24 overlay project. It's really not an overlay. It's a full depth reclamation project. Is going well. We're finishing up the intersection at US 24 and Garrett Road. We're about ready to make a switch from 4 lanes from Constitution to Garrett to only 2 lanes. So we'll get some congestion, but it's a 50-day period that we're going to have to make that switch to only 2 lanes. So we will finish the project this season, so that'll be a good thing. I think we're almost out of Manitou, if not already, with the final striping wrapped up. Good. We're happy and pleased that you're pleased. So we're still looking for options for signal. We haven't forgotten about that request. So right now, it's in terms of capital signal funds, it's still kind of at the bottom, but there may be other options that we may look at. So we're proceeding with the 2 overlay projects, one in Fremont and one in Teller County, on Teller County 67 and Fremont on 50 and 9, and those are starting up very soon if they haven't started already, Monday. So we're going to be very sensitive to the tourist needs, especially on 67. We get a lot of tourist traffic on 52, so we want to make sure that we're working with our locals on that. So with regard to the I-25 PL, a lot of discussion about funding, and that's a good thing. We will have an I-25 PL presentation to the TAC and CAC this month and board next month on progress. And what
in general, what we're working on right now is level 2 screening to see what projects will filter or what alternatives will filter out of that process as far as our purpose and need for the project. So we're going to start narrowing down those alternatives more so. We'll go out to the public with a public meeting in September. Right now we're planning September 26th and 28th. The 26th will be in Colorado Springs at the same location. But again, some good progress on that that project. And then with that, it seems like I'm forgetting one more thing. Well, maybe I'll remember, but I'm going to bring up Dave Watt, and he'll give you an update on Cimarron. And I think that project is going to wrap up fairly soon, too. So, Dave.
Thanks, Mark. Dave Watt, one of Mark's resident engineers. We'll pass out the update sheets. We have a couple here coming. A fact sheet for the quadrant intersection we've had some discussions about over the past several months. And then also our monthly newsletter that we have walked through each month. Mark's correct. We are nearing the end. However, I want to point out we're nearing the end of a 2.5-year construction project, so we still have over 5 months worth of work and probably $8 million worth of expenditure to go. So I am able to say, as I have previously, that we remain on budget and within schedule. That schedule that we've been discussing is the fall of 2017. I'm able to say we're looking at the end of October, so slightly ahead of that schedule, but we are voicing some caution on that with weather and the amount of work that we've got remaining to do. I want to emphasize this is and remains an active construction project. We were out late last night pouring the I-25 structures deck. That's a rather significant milestone in the construction. But I emphasize that there's still several $7 million worth of work. We are currently impacting traffic on 8th Street. That's caught some attention to the businesses. So like along I-25, along US 24, to get to these improvements and get the relief that the project is going to be providing, there is still yet some inconvenience that we're trying to power through. And when I say power through, we remain committed to trying to provide updates and information to those impacted. So we did reach out to the businesses, particularly on the southwest corner of 8th and 24. We can't make some of those things more palatable to fit in the improvements and the added traffic light that will be there south of US 24, servicing the Quadrant Road and those businesses. We've had to take some lanes away and a left turn exit, if you will. So those businesses are bearing with us. We appreciate the patience and know that quadrant intersection will be complete at the end of next month. That's going to be a big improvement to the area. That's an added value that we were not anticipating as part of the basic configuration. But that's where you're seeing some construction activity right now. Some other good news that we'll also have some of the inconvenience that I mentioned earlier will be the opening of the single point urban interchange. So we've been discussing what this will look like, that whether it's Austin Bluff Union or Garden of the Gods and I-25, there will be one traffic signal underneath the overpass that will be controlling the ramp movements, a more gentle curve than you typically see on a tight diamond or a diamond interchange, so those movements can be happening smoother and faster. That also leaves more room for some at green time to efficiently move the traffic in the interchange. So again, that's September 22nd, but with some of the striping and some of the final pavement and putting those pieces together underneath the bridge and in between the ramps, there's going to be some delays that we're going to have to experience to get the right temperatures to complete the paving and complete the striping. But we feel pretty good about now, a week from Thursday, that we're going to have a new configuration of the interchange. So in the rearview mirror will be that cloverleaf contraption that we had when we started the project and kind of the piecemeal of the ramps. So we're looking forward to in a week having a better operating interchange, and it'll start things take some shape. some added improvements. We are looking at the final steps. It's also going to have some additional traffic impacts. We are going to be able to add in about $1 million worth of bridge work on the Colorado Avenue overpass. Recall that's on the north end of our project and has some ride issues. We've had some settlement there that we're going to be able to address with this project and have this be the smooth I-25 realignment. While it's going to be shifted 100 feet to the west, it'll be a better alignment. We want to be able to take this opportunity and address that rehabilitation is what I'm referring to it as on Colorado Avenue. That's about another $1 million worth of work that we'll be adding, and that still comes in line with that end of October completion date. Seen a lot of good things come together. We're excited about June 22nd with the opening of a single point urban interchange, and looking forward to continuing on moving forward. And remind folks, it is a construction zone. There's still several $7 million worth of work, but we're gonna finish it up in the next few months. I'd ask if there's any questions.
That single point urban interchange is about the same as it is under Garden of the Gods, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So there's nothing really new in this one.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that, though. The quadrant intersection is a little bit new. It's similar to what we have at the Fillmore in I-25, and we're going to try to get some information out with a link to show some simulations on how that can work and get that message out ahead of the end of July. So our travelers will be alerted to it's going to be a little bit different movement, and it will help out the 8th Street 24 intersection and reduce some of that delay through there and give folks a better way to get onto 8th Street and back onto the highway.
Dave, I guess question relative to Fillmore. What's you guys' thought on traffic flow there? I found myself on the top of Fillmore Hill for way too long, like longer than it ever was prior to the new construction. Am I missing something?
No, in fact, I drove it last night and timed it. So there's some signal timing we want to look at. In fact, I was talking to Kathleen about that to see if we can't increase some green time for the eastbound movement on the west side. But I timed it at. It took me about 4 minutes, 20 seconds to get from the top of the hill to the interstate. So that was at 4:45, so that was right in the middle of rush hour. So that was the worst congestion we've seen. In fact, it seems like it's getting worse now. Now, the city may be able to comment on the Centennial Road extension, which I think will help. So I'm gonna let Kathleen talk about those two.
We will try to adjust some signal timing. However, signal timing can only get you so far when it comes to capacity. We're running into two problems. No, I'll say it's three problems on Fillmore. We're having an increase of traffic using 31st, 30th Fillmore. They're avoiding the congestion and construction on Colorado Avenue at the west end. They're avoiding the interchange construction at Cimarron and I-25 and using Fillmore. So we're seeing an increase of traffic. Hopefully when Cimarron is completed, that will go down a little bit and make it a little bit easier to handle that signal timing. The real improvement at Fillmore comes probably in early 2019 with the completion of Centennial going through past Fillmore all the way down to the Fontanero interchange. That could take as much as 10,000 vehicles a day off of Fillmore at that location. So that's going to help a lot.
Those of us that travel Woodland Park north can't wait for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because right now it's almost faster. It used to be go 31st, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
from 31st to Cimarron, faster to Fillmore, but now it's faster to go to the highway even with the construction on Cimarron and
I would highly encourage after the 22nd, when the Spooey intersection is open at Cimarron and I-25, for our travelers going back and forth into Teller County to try the Cimarron interchange, because they might find that to be a very pleasant surprise compared to some of the congestion they're getting on city streets.
Yes.
I'm getting chronological gifted. But when I look at this, I remember Tommy Smothers saying.
Tommy Smothers.
Well, I fell in a vat of chocolate. Remember that? And I fell in a vat of chocolate.
I'm
What did you do when you fell in the chocolate? You said, I yelled, chocolate! You know, this, I'm sorry, but this design looks like if you just drove up and knew that design, you wonder, where am I going? It's just a humorous comment, nothing serious implied.
So I was going to give you an update on Woodland Park as well. I forgot that. We do have the signal project that we are updating, are finishing up in Woodland Park, so we'll have that completed, Mayor, this year, in the next few weeks. Well, we do have a couple more signals that we have to start construction on. Those are the left turn. But we are finishing up the original signals that we were working on. So, and then there was one more item I can't, let's see. Well, maybe it was the Fillmore project. So I think that concludes our construction. Oh, we do have the bridge maintenance repair project that is ongoing in El Paso County on a lot of the bridges that have bare decks. So we're sealing those decks, and so a lot of that work is at night. So that is the last project on our construction list. Any questions?
The Hawk system slows down traffic. I don't know
It did.
if it happens.
Okay.
I don't want it to happen. but
Right.
It's happening. We haven't figured it out yet. Flashing yellow, red, when to stop,
Sure.
when to go. I'm sure that won't take long.
Okay, good. Sometimes it just takes getting used to that.
Trustee.
Yeah, Bruce Davis, City Council Inspector. Do you have an estimated completion date for the repaving on Highway 67?
We should finish it up by November. So early November, weather pending. Usually we want to get out of there by the end of October.
Right.
But,
Okay.
we'll see.
140 days of work time. I don't know, they're going to have two crews, one north and one south, or one crew only, do you know? 4 days a week, 40 days starting June 19th, you can do the math.
Yeah, we're going to have between Divide and Cripple Creek, we'll be doing cold recycle first, which is really milling up the pavement and putting it back down. And we may do a paving crew independent of that. So we'll see. I don't know exactly what the phasing looks like, but in order to meet the schedule, I think we may have to do that. A lot of paving, 40,000 tons, I think, is what we're trying to put down.
Trustee.
When I was coming in this morning, I saw that you had a bridge strike about a half mile east of Peyton. Was there a fatality in that?
I don't know. So
It looked like it took off the whole side of
the whole side of the rail, was it the old style rail?
Yes, sir.
So
Wooden rail?
yeah, one of those we're looking at as a safety project to either widen the bridge or bring the rail up to standard.
I think it was the one just further than that. I think there's one bridge, the bridge just east of Peyton, you're gonna work on, but I think it was one just past that, just east of that. And then you're gonna do the one, that's west of Peyton. You're doing the one on either side of Peyton.
Right.
Is my understanding. And then I think this was the one east of the one that you're going to.
Okay. I'll ask our traffic folks to look at that and see what the accident was and see if there's renewed interest to maybe add a list of those bridges to one project if we can upgrade the rail at least for those projects or those bridges in that section.
And then also regrind the numbers for safety.
That happens. That'll happen. And then just to comment on Fillmore, we are going to go back and look at the operations of the intersection, the way it's operating now as compared to what it was modeled at, to see is it really doing what it was intended to do. And I think the answer is yes. I think the interchange is moving traffic. We don't get the backups that you saw on the westerly side, going eastbound, that is fairly smooth. It's the eastbound traffic on the west side that we're getting those backups. So again, we'll look at signal timing. We'll look at, possibly some striping to extend the turn lane for the southbound right as well. So that may be able to help. And that southbound right would be eastbound to southbound. We may be able to extend that lane through Chestnut to help with that movement as well. So more to come. If the board would like, I can report out that analysis when we finish it. So.
Well, I don't know about the board. I would like to see that for sure. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions?
Any questions?
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Moving on, member entity announcements. Trustee?
I'm not sure that this is the right venue. It's something that has bothered me for quite a while. This is probably not something that the PPACG wants to take on, but it's something that I would really like to get off my chest. It's come to my attention that within a very short distance of my town, that there are a great number of illegal grows. I'm talking like 550. I've been told repeatedly by law enforcement agencies that they don't have the tools, such as legislative tools, or the number of officers, sworn officers, to take care of this problem. Now, these are not legal grows. They are not producing taxes. They are not, building new schools. They are in the newspapers. They are leading to murders. This is in my little local newspaper. I'm not talking out of my rear, okay? This is factual. So, we just got done with one legislative session, and I may hurt some feelings when I say this next bit, but it's kind of my opinion that politicians never quit running for office. As soon as they get elected once, they start running again. That's okay, I don't care. But I think if people want my vote, they better figure out what they're going to do about this problem in the state of Colorado.
Commissioner Waller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Trustee Smith, I couldn't agree with you more. I represent that area on the county commission. And our last estimates, talking to Mountain View Electric, is that they think there are at least over 400 in eastern El Paso County. So your numbers aren't off. I mean, that's absolutely correct. I've said consistently, I think this is going to be the single biggest issue we deal with, not for the next year or two, but for the next decade, because it's all brand new. We've never had, we're one of the first states to have legalized marijuana, I caution to say legalized marijuana, because really all our Constitution says is possessing an ounce or less of marijuana shall be decriminalized. It doesn't give drug lords the authority to move to Colorado and grow marijuana. You're right. By definition, any grow operation in eastern El Paso County is an illegal grow operation, because we only have 3 areas in the entire county where grows are allowed to happen at all. And those are only for medicinal purposes, not for recreational use in any way. I'm hopeful that things are getting better. You know, one of the big issues early on was law enforcement couldn't, if they seized a bunch of marijuana in a raid, and then, that case was subsequently dismissed, actually a district court and then the appellate court said law enforcement has to give that marijuana back, or has to give the value of that marijuana back, which could, be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. And so that was a significant barrier to law enforcement's success or ability to go in and be able to take these grow operations on. However, recently, the state Supreme Court, in a decision, decided that law enforcement isn't responsible for the maintenance of that marijuana, isn't responsible to return it. And so that has made it easier for local law enforcement officials to get in and raid those properties. And finally, I just say, we're working with Mountain View Electric to figure out if there's a way. Mountain View Electric's not a publicly traded utility in any way, and so they're not subject to Colorado open records the way other public utilities are. And so it's a bit of a tricky situation in order to be able to get electrical records that help us determine who's growing marijuana and who's not in a rural electric authority versus some public utility that's out there. But we're working with them on that, trying to get to the right answer. I think it's incredibly important that we maintain the privacy of the users. I'm sure you're a Mountain View Electric user out there. It's incredibly important for us to maintain the privacy of the legitimate users, while at the same time being able to use that information against the ones that we feel are non-legitimate users. But I can tell you, again, you're right, it's frustrating. I live out in that area as well. We are working hard to come up with the right answers to this issue, but I think it's going to take us a decade to completely figure this out.
Commissioner Littleton?
Thank you. Well, Trustee Smith, you're correct. You are correct. And one of the things, since this is unfortunately in the Constitution of the United States, there's not a whole lot that legislators can do because the Constitution. Oh, I'm sorry, Constitution of Colorado, that's what I meant. Colorado Constitution, that the voters put that in. And so there's not a lot that legislators do, but what they did do is give authority to counties. And as Commissioner Waller explained, we have done a pretty good job over the last few years making it as onerous as possible to grow. But to provide those people that right and opportunity, because it is legal in the state of Colorado, even though it's federally illegal. And so we've gone back and we've said it can only be grown in a certain number of square feet. It has to be behind a locked door. We've tried to give law enforcement more latitude as opposed to handcuffing them to be able to go in to these illegal marijuana grows to, try to help, reduce and minimize any of that out there, because we know people's homes that they rent out there are being destroyed. We know that utilities are being burned up. And so it is a problem, and we acknowledge that. But to say, and law enforcement is strapped, and I think that one of the things that Commissioner Waller stated, because of the restriction now, or they've lifted the restriction of us having to grow marijuana and to continue to cultivate it for people that are in jail or being prosecuted for it. Now we can go in and take and have some more latitude with those illegal marijuana grows, destroy it, and not have to have compensation given back to them should they be found innocent or guilty. Because otherwise it put us in a very bad decision or a bad position to be able to go in and do anything. But certainly, Commissioner Waller and the rest of us are working with you. Certainly we'll make those concerns made known to the Sheriff's Office, because they, in my estimation, do go out and investigate and monitor and are doing quite a few raids out there on different places for the illegal medical marijuana or the illegal marijuana grows.
They know about them. I'm sure they're monitoring them, and probably at some point they'll make their move. it's frustrating in the meantime.
We agree.
I went to a school that was, they formed a joint school district between Rama, Simla, and Matheson. They called it Big Sandy School. And the Rama school was used for grades 3, 4, 5, and 6. It's 2 blocks from my house. And now it's a grow. And it's been that way for, I don't know, probably 2 years now. And you see Chevy Suburbans go there with people getting out of them with assault weapons and things like this. And, you know, you got your granddaughters coming out there, anywhere from ages 2 to 9. I got 4 granddaughters. They bring their friends out there. I just celebrated my granddaughter's 2nd birthday. We had 16 people out there at my house. We don't have a police department in Rama. How far are we from the El Paso County Police Department?
You want? That's rhetorical. Okay. Okay. Anything else? It's no question a problem that we're all kind of struggling with. Okay. Any other member announcements?
I have one, but I feel kind of odd after that. We are really excited, City of Fountain, to be part of the Pikes Peak Bike Week. I'm not sure if you've heard about it, and it's motorcycles. I always have to verify that. I've got it mixed up a few times. They're going to be having daily concerts out at Pikes Peak International Raceway, using it as a venue June 21st to the 25th. But they're going to be having pre-rally days June 16th to the 20th, not only in Fountain, but in Colorado Springs locations and different areas around town. So if you are interested in that, it's going to be a really exciting event. We're hoping for a great impact in our community and the tourism it's going to bring. But hearing a lot of buzz within the community, but it's really exciting. So unfortunately, I only have one flyer. But if anybody's interested in it or might know anybody that's interested in it, I think it's going to be, we're working Fountain Police and El Paso County Sheriffs, and everybody's going to work together to make this event really work for our community. So if you're interested in that, I'm sure there's a website on here somewhere. You're welcome to look at the flyer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other member entity announcements? Okay. We have the meeting schedule. Any questions on that? Seeing none. We do have an executive session scheduled. I don't anticipate it running long at all, but what? I just jinxed this, I know. I've been wrong every time I predicted it, so. Pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes 22-6402-4B, the board in open session is to determine whether we'll hold a closed executive session for the purpose of conferring with an attorney to receive legal advice on specific legal questions and determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiation, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing counsel in connection with litigation. The chair shall poll the board members, and upon affirmative vote of 2/3 of the members present, may hold a closed executive session. If 2/3 affirmative vote for the executive session is not received, the item may be discussed in open session or withdrawn from consideration. I'll go around the table. The mayor disappeared. Trustee. No, we just need to poll. I think we just need to poll first, or do you need a motion? It doesn't say that.
I think we need a motion.
Think you need a motion? All right.
I move we go into executive session.
I move to go into executive session.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Well, I didn't really poll, so let me walk around and polls, because I think that is required. Mayor?
Yes.
Yes. Trustee?
Yes.
Commissioner?
I will.
Councilman? Yes? Mayor?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I think we have it. We shall go in, we shall prepare for that, and we'll come back in, let's